People are now referring to Pete Hegseth as WhiskeyLeaks, and I'm kinda peeved that I didn't think of it first. Hi, old F-18 pilot here with 80 plus combat missions. Launch times on a strike mission are absolutely classified. Yeah, but besides Mega trying to change the facts, of course they are. Especially when drunk. ABC News, CBS News, MSNBC, CNN, an unthinkable breach of national security. Fox News. Come on, we've all texted the wrong person before. Every world leader in the future waiting for Hegseth's drunk and 2 AM text. Maybe we should start a poll on which country he tries to booty call. North Korea, you up? Paying for that White House infomercial, I see. On Sunday night, I will give a talk in Wisconsin. Entrance is limited to those who have voted in the Supreme Court election. I will also personally hand over 2 checks for $1 million each in appreciation for you taking the time to vote. This is super important. Okay, this is blatant electoral fraud. Everyone who voted opposite of Elon's wishes should show up and boo. Now I'm hoping someone who votes opposite gets a check. Lol. This guy actually thinks real checks are going to be handed out to people that aren't plants? Federal law makes it unlawful in an election in which there's a federal contest on the ballot. For example, President, US Senate, US Representative, to knowingly and willfully pay, offer to pay, or accept payment for registering to vote or for voting. It's illegal to hand out water to people in line to vote in Georgia, but apparently giving out $1 million checks is okay? Right. Can you sell the bottle for a penny? That's a bribe. $5, and only if you're Nestle. The old relationship we had with the United States based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperation is over. Wow, becoming such a dick even Canada doesn't like you? Really on the libs with that one. That's good and all, but in the end, it will be Biden's fault anyway. So, which is it? If this info wasn't classified, that in itself would be a scandalous screw-up that must be explained. And if it was classified, then the Trump administration lied to Congress and to the American people. I always thought it would take some evil genius to destroy America. Turns out, all it took was some conman with the IQ of a jar of mayonnaise, and millions of supporters with even less. Here's a list of countries that have issued a travel advisory this year, warning their citizens about visiting the United States. Canada, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, the Netherlands, New Zealand, and my home country of the United Kingdom. It says a lot that even if my country's issued a travel advisory to the United States, despite us being like really good allies, that says quite a lot. Rules for me, but not for thee. Bernie. We love Bernie Sanders here. The leader of the free world does not like freedom. He has sued ABC, CBS, Meta, and the Des Moines Register. Now he wants to decimate NPR and PBS. Mr. President, the First Amendment is not negotiable. Stop undermining the Constitution. See, but if it's MAGA's logic, if they're the ones doing it, it's absolutely fine. The Republican Party is ruining our democracy. Come on, people need to wake up. These are the same folks that insist the US is a republic, not a democracy. Lamau, savages. Signal, private messenger. The hidden invite random journalist button has been moved to avoid accidental taps. Oligarchs buying elections with $1 million giveaways? Hopefully people in Wisconsin won't allow the South African to purchase a seat on your Supreme Court, just like you bought the US federal government. The worst person you know is even more disconnected from the average person. If you thought you had nothing in common after learning they shot their own dog, hopefully now you've realised. It appears that Kristi Noem may have worn a $60,000 Rolex during her visit to the El Salvadorian prison camp today. Rules for thee. Guys? NBC just found out a DHS staffer accidentally added a journalist to an email thread about an ICE raid in Denver. Yeah, a completely separate incident. That staffer is being punished, so why aren't Hegseth and Waltz? I just fundamentally don't understand why they stick with these idiots from a strategy standpoint. Surely Trump can find an equally loyal person to fill these roles and do his bidding, who also won't fuck things up this bad. It's such an easy political win just to be like, yeah, that's unacceptable, these guys are fired. See, the thing is, the smart ones aren't actually loyal, and he knows it. They just pretend until they see their chance. Yeah, he learned that his first term. That actually makes pretty decent sense why most of the MAGA cabinet is just a bunch of lemmings. This guy is in one of the worst prisons in the world, with no way out, and may spend the rest of his life there, because it appears he has an autism awareness tattoo in honor of his little brother. Dear American citizens, whatever you wish more German citizens would have done in 1933, do that right now. It is utterly disgraceful that more than 24 hours after hearing of 4 dead US soldiers in Lithuania, Trump still has made no public statement about it. We know how he feels about his painting in Colorado, but not about 4 US soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice. Yeah, so much for caring about the everyday person. Because if you've somehow not figured out over the past 2 months, newsflash, he doesn't. Here's a quick reminder, the First Amendment protects everyone who resides in our country. Doesn't matter if you have a green card or a visa, or even if you're undocumented. The Supreme Court has repeatedly affirmed that any person residing in the United States, regardless of status, is entitled to First Amendment protections. Unfortunately, a legal right is of no consequence if mechanisms to enforce it are either dissolved or withheld. Part of sending people to El Salvador is to remove them from the Constitution's protective umbrella, as they are non-citizens, no longer residing in this country. Doge primarily cancelled grants in counties that voted against him. Doge and Musk preferentially cancelled grants and contracts to recipients in counties that voted for Harris in 2024. Among cancellations with election data available, 92.9% and 86.1% cancelled grants and contracts went to Harris counties, representing 96.6 and 92.4% of total dollar amounts. They said don't weaponize the government, LeMayo. Haven't you learnt yet? All Republican accusations are confessions. All. When you realize this truth, it makes other accusations pretty scary. Exciting to announce our first $1 million award for supporting our petition against activist judges in Wisconsin. The next $1 million award will be announced in 2 days. The world's oldest democracy reduced to a drugged-out oligarch handing out $1 million checks to buy off voters every time there's an election? Absolutely pathetic and humiliating behavior, straight out of like 19th century Latin America. Yeah, I can relate to the US government because I'm also leaving questionably big decisions up to the whims of a mentally ill group chat. Call your senators. Not getting much attention, but the Senate GOP is about to start voting to make sure banks can charge higher overdraft fees. Seriously. I'd say it's a pretty good time to let your senators know what you think of that. So many US Americans voted for the party who wants to make living in the United States like a subscription to pre-hell. They believed the lies of the worst candidate ever because they're still too misogynistic and racist to vote for a black woman. Don't forget all the trans people. I'm still not sure on why, but apparently it's their fault people voted for Trump. Being treated like a human was too much to ask for a lot of people apparently. Elon Musk is bankrolling a Republican operative in next week's Wisconsin Supreme Court race, who has advocated for imposing an 1849 law that bans all abortions and pledged to support his new business interests. Yay, it's Bernie again. We love Bernie. If Elon Musk can spend more than $19 million to buy a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court, what election can he not buy? This is not just about a woman's right to control her own body, this is about saving our democracy. Wisconsin, say no to Elon Musk. Elect Susan Crawford. Make polio great again. Grim news from the Joe Rogan world. Joe is getting into polio vaccine skepticism, and just had a guest who said polio wasn't that big a deal. Not good. Oh my god, because like modern medicine is like so last century, am I right? Why the need to avoid a subpoena if you aren't breaking the law, huh? Project 2025 training videos instruct the MAGA cult to use Signal in their communications in order to avoid subpoenas. even when you've lost Piers Morgan. If you don't consider this to be classified info about imminent war plans, it may be that you're too partisan to recognize the truth when it slaps you around your tribal chops. If this had happened on Biden's watch, Republicans would have rightly gone berserk. See, but hey, it's MAGA doing it, so it's absolutely fine being swept under the rug, right?